I now come to the urgent question. Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, for granting this. To ask the Minister for Transport if I make a statement on the ongoing connectivity issues caused by belatedly announced cancellations of flights such as those between Belfast and London. Mr Speaker, Northern Ireland is an intricate part.
Minister, I come back to you.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the right honourable gentleman for an opportunity to talk about these important issues. It's unusual we're doing it in an urgent question and not at the adjournment debate where he normally intervenes, but be that as it may, you've gone the... Thank you, Mr Speaker. I know the issue of connectivity across the UK is of great interest to him and many of his constituents as it strengthens the bond between our communities. Cancellations affect passengers and business who rely on punctual services and connections, impacting confidence. It is the responsibility of airlines and airports to work together to minimise delays and cancellations. Connectivity across our country is vital, and this Government currently joint funds 3 public service obligation routes into London, including from Derry, London-Derry. However, the UK aviation market operates predominantly in the private sector, as I've said, and it's for airports to invest in their infrastructure and airlines to determine the routes they operate. I recognise the importance of Belfast City and Belfast International airports for local communities and businesses. The Department is actively engaging with regional airports, including those in Northern Ireland, to understand how government can support and unlock opportunities for growth.
Jim Shannon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank the Minister for that answer. Northern Ireland is an intricate part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. You don't have to have a United Kingdom without her, and indeed the members in this chamber would be a lot poorer for the lack of Northern Ireland. We are thankful to be a part of these British Isles and have fought hard to remain so. However, being a constitutionally and being a part practically are very different issues, and the fact is that you need to take a plane or a boat to come across to the mainland. 3 million passengers travelled on scheduled domestic flights in the UK between July and September 2021, and of these flights, the third and fourth most popular routes were Belfast and London flights. We have a huge share of domestic internal routes, and the reason is clear. People have such strong links and needs to go between these parts of the United Kingdom. Yesterday, Mr Speaker, a text was sent to passengers of a flight to London City from Belfast City. On that flight that I know of were not simply frustrated businessmen and women, but a disabled person with disabled assistance, a person on their way to a health appointment in London, and a family getting a connecting flight for their holiday destination. We understand that bad weather, Mr Speaker, can affect flight patterns, and sometimes these things are unavoidable. But my understanding of the flight yesterday was cancelled back in September. Indeed, Mr Speaker, this is the flight that never was. They took our money, they took our boarding passes, they let us through security, and then the plane wasn't there. It's quite unbelievable that should happen. So in relation to the person going to the London hospital was booked on a flight 7 hours later, completely missing their appointment, and for the business personnel, their day was gone. For the holidaymaker, their connection was flowing. Those who were attending St Ormond's Children's Hospital missed appointments. Those who were going to other hospitals missed appointments. Businessmen and businesswomen missed appointments. The whole thing was quite unbelievable. So the flight that never was never up in the flight announcements in Belfast City Airport either. So we were all going through this flight, all those 100 people from all those places across Northern Ireland. And I finish with this, Mr Speaker, because you're very careful with your 2 minutes. I can understand if this were an anomaly, but this is fast becoming a norm, and this will affect business, investment and tourism in Northern Ireland and needs an urgent review of procedures and in light of the additional air passenger duty. So can I ask the Minister this question? I do hope that some of the additional money used for people to travel within the UK can be used to ensure that airlines live up to their responsibilities and maintain connectivity as a priority. Mr Speaker, thank you for granting it, and to the Minister's way.
Can I just say it's normally 2 minutes? I know you're making up for that flight yesterday, and of course the House missed you, that's why you got the UQ Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Business and tourism is vital for growth, as the honourable member said, and we did have some connectivity problems and cancellations with Storm Ashley recently, and I am sorry to hear about his constituents missing appointment, and particularly the disabled constituents. But the Secretary has said she's going to lead work in this space that we make accessibility in flight vitally important. Belfast is still served by 22 to 35 flights per day, and I suggest that he does take it up with airlines and the airport himself.
Right, Chair of the Select Committee, Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last month, 18 flights between Belfast City and Heathrow were cancelled, which I can only imagine how difficult that must be for the members from Northern Ireland and for their constituents. The last Transport Committee, in its aviation reform inquiry, recommended that the government revise the public service obligation routes and the subsidies to improve domestic air connectivity. So does the Minister agree that this is important in connecting Northern Ireland with the UK, and will he be bringing forward work on this?
Can I thank the Chair of the Transport Select Committee for the excellent work that she does in that field. Cancellations are bad for business, they're bad for tourism, they're bad for passengers. We have the public service obligation. It is up for renewal on a regular basis, and I think flight prices and flight connectivity and cancellations should be looked at in the round when we come to renew those obligations.
Minister Gareth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Flight cancellations are a serious and significant issue, one that we took seriously in government and worked across the sector to tackle. And I'm proud that in government we published the Aviation Passenger Charter, which included clearer advice on how passengers can resolve cancelled and delayed flights, as well as missing baggage and the rights of disabled passengers. And in 2023 we halved air passenger duty for domestic flights. We also made the commitment to strengthen the powers of the Civil Aviation Authority, and I would ask the Minister whether he intends to take this forward. When in government, we also published the Flight Path to the Future, which included a substantial framework to increase the efficiency of the existing aviation system and support passengers as well as move further towards the goal for sustainable aviation. So I would ask the Minister what further steps he intends to take to ensure that the measures that we set out to improve the aviation sector and improve passenger experience are taken forward. But frankly, Mr. Speaker, this is a government that has failed the public so far. Last week's budget was in large part an attack on workers, on businesses, on farmers and on the aviation sector. The government's decision to increase air passenger duty has led to a worried response from the passenger aviation sector, and Ryanair has already announced their intentions to cut flights to and from UK airports by 10%. This is a government which has so far shown itself to be deeply uninterested in the consequences of its actions on workers, on farmers and now on air passengers. So finally, more in hope than expectation, can I ask the Minister what steps the government is going to take to resolve the relationship with the passenger aviation sector and ensure that passengers are well served?
Well, I'll say with all candour to the honourable member, I remember COVID because I shadowed this brief at the time, and I remember there was no specific aviation package for airlines, airports or airport handlers, which meant we came out of COVID in a much worse position than we could have done if government had implemented its own Treasury proposals. So we're going to take no lectures on this side about our support for aviation in this place. On a specific question for rights of passengers, yes, we will be looking at strengthening rights for passengers going forward. On APPD, it went up by less than inflation because it hasn't increased in a number of years, but I'll refer him to His Majesty's Treasury for more detailed answers on tax matters.
Parliamentary.
Mr. Speaker, I think we've finally figured out why the Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland hasn't been able to make it to Northern Ireland just yet. Can I thank the government and also the Northern Ireland Executive for their recent commitment to Derry Airport, the City of Derry Airport. The public service obligation on the Heathrow flight is very important for connectivity to the northwest of Ireland. But can I ask him, when he is reviewing that for the next tranche of funding that we're hopefully able to get, can he do some work with the airline to bring fares down, because they are out of reach for many people in that area?
Can I thank the honourable member for all he does in this space, and yes, to join him in encouraging the Shadow Secretary of State to go to Northern Ireland, which is a fine country. The honourable member knows that I visit regularly through either Belfast or Derry, Londonderry. It is a great place to live, visit and work and do business. On his specific point about prices, I encourage him, his connectivity is 19 flights, I think, or more a week in the summer from Derry, Londonderry, which is really well connected. And I would suggest to him to get involved with the airlines, the airport owners, to do this. But yes, we can look at this when we come up to review with our public sector obligation.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Christine Joddy.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. I can sympathise with the honourable member for Strangford and thank him for bringing this forward, because we consistently have the same problem in Edinburgh and other Scottish airports with the lack of connectivity and the disruption it causes. And I understand that the weather was one of the key reasons for the delays this weekend, but another was the delays in air traffic control, which is under pressure because staff shortages and rising traffic have created issues which Eurocontrol, the main organisation supporting European aerospace, has warned that if we're to keep passengers safe and stop disruption, there has to be better coordination between aircraft operators, airports and others across the continent. So can the Minister tell me, please, what conversations the Secretary of State has had with European partners on building resilience in air traffic control? And does the Government have confidence in the robustness of air traffic control in the UK to serve our connectivity properly?
Can I thank the honourable member for her question? Officials regularly engage with our counterparts across Europe and the European Union, and I would say that this government has committed to airspace modernisation, which will improve resilience. So I look forward to the support from them benches in the near future as we progress to modernising our airspace right across our great nations.
Dr Scott Arthur.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement and for reiterating the importance of getting regional air connections right and how that can help underpin economic growth. But I hope the Minister agrees that we should not let ourselves get distracted. Large parts of our country could be better served with better regional rail connections, and with better rail connections, hopefully that would reduce some of the congestion at our airports. Does he agree on that point?
I thank the honourable member for his question. We know that public transport penetration within an hour of an airport is absolutely vital, key performance indicator about how those airports can grow and serve people better. So better rail, better bus, better road links, better active travel to our airports is actually critical for this industry moving forward.
Harriet Cross.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Aberdeen Airport is also one that struggles with cancelled flights. Over 4% of flights were cancelled last year, which makes it one of the highest airports in the country for cancellations. Will the Minister agree that sort of making sure that all our regions of the UK, including in Scotland, have a reliable connection, especially to London for things like business travel and linking our rural communities to sort of urban centres is really important? And what can his government do to make sure that these things can improve in the future?
I thank the honourable member for standing up for her local airport in Aberdeen. As somebody who recently caught the connecting flight from Newquay in Manchester onto Aberdeen, it was an excellent service by Logan Air. It was a great honour to visit Aberdeen Airport recently to see its helicopter base for North Sea oil and its importance to the transition that we're going to beginning in our clean energy mission. I suggest that she takes it up with Andy, the Chief Executive there, and maybe the new political director of political affairs, Gavin Newlands, the former member for Paisley and in this House.
Oh, maybe not. Let's have a Roberts then.
Now, there are no public flights from North Wales to London, so we depend on trains. Travellers on Vanty Westcoast's North Wales services endure chronic overcrowding, reduced direct services to London since COVID, rolling stock breakdowns and on-the-day cancellations 3 to 4 times higher than the rest of the Avanti network. Their franchise runs till 2026. What is the government doing to make sure Avanti offers the people of North Wales and their economy a decent...
Order, come on. It's not even linked to flights. This is about trains. No. Let's not kid each other. No point wasting time. Let's have somebody else who will ask the right question anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the honourable member for Strangford has highlighted, reliable regional connectivity absolutely matters. So I'd like to ask the Transport Secretary, when he's looking at public service obligation routes, will he really consider looking as well at the transparency of data that's coming out of those, the reliability, and also penalties for failure? It cannot be right that somebody gets the additional stress of a flight cancelled when they're trying to get to a hospital appointment.
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. People shouldn't be missing hospital appointments because of cancelled planes in the aviation sector. And yes, I agree with the honourable member. I think it's a very considered question that when these contracts come up for renewal, we look at them in the round to see how best they can serve the needs of the travelling public.
Sammy Wilson.
Mr. Speaker, and can I thank you for allowing this question, which, as been outlined, is important to many of our constituents. And as you sit in the lounge and talk to people who have had flights delayed, you can see their frustration. Though I suspect that you're maybe wishing you'd cancelled this question because the member for Strangford took so long and delayed landing the question itself that I saw you getting increasingly uneasy as you were listening to him. But, Mr. Speaker, the problem as I see it, and increasingly we are finding flights delayed, and it's one company in particular, BA, who have a monopoly on the flights. And I think it's a lesson, an economic lesson to be learnt as well, that monopolies are abused. And one only has to look at the price which is charged on some occasions. You could fly to Australia cheaper than you can fly to London on some occasions with British Airways. And secondly, of course, they seem to delay flights. And sometimes they give technical reasons, weather reasons or whatever. Very often it's because the planes are not full and they simply amalgamate flights. Will the Secretary of State give a commitment to investigating with BA why is it that the Belfast route is so...
You're Jim Shannon in disguise. Come on, Minister.
Well, we were struggling to get the question landed. We've been taxiing for a bit. Now we're ready for takeoff. I would say to the honourable member, I don't want to pick on particular airlines, and I am discussing with airline CEOs around regional connectivity in the UK, because I do think it is vital, which I think is the point the honourable member is making. But I would just point out gently that Belfast International is a great airport to fly through, and also it is well served not just by a single operator. It has multiple operators serving multiple airports, particularly down here in the south-east.
Dr. Luke Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in his earlier answer, he talked about growth and connectivity being so important. So could he explain how the £2 increase, the holiday tax that's being added to airport duty, is going to make a difference, especially when Ryanair have announced they're going to cut 5 million seats? Because that will have a dramatic impact on anyone wanting to travel within the UK and across Europe. So what impact assessment is the government going to carry out to ensure that there is that connectivity?
Well, I'll remind the honourable member that as a tax, airport passenger duty is a matter for His Majesty's Treasury. At the autumn budget, we announced that APD rates from 2026 to 27 to account for the previous extraordinarily high inflation under the party opposite, to ensure that aviation industry continues to contribute a fair share to the public finances.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given the dissatisfaction that we're hearing about the connectivity between Northern Ireland, which is a critical part of the UK, it seems to me the Minister needs to commit in the next review of the public service obligation to include Belfast City and to include a review of the operators. Will he do so?
Minister.
Well, I'd say to the honourable member, it's a good question, but I would do that automatically, and I'd extend the public service obligation to the other parts of our great nation where it applies, and also to, let's not forget, Derry City Airport as well, which is vital for the North West's economy in that fantastic part of our nation.
Gregory Campbell.
Speaker, I think everyone understands there are cancellations due to weather and other issues beyond the control of the airlines, but will the Minister not meet with the likes of BA to ensure that they understand the need for reliability and the need for information to be given to customers as quickly and promptly as possible so that they can take steps to make alternative arrangements if possible.
I thank the honourable member for his question. To answer it, I recently did meet with the Chief Executive of British Airways and raised regional connectivity.
Alexis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the Minister agree with me that good transport links between the rest of the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland is vital for business and tourism, and that these delays and cancellations are looking extremely bad in the public's eye? Will he give a commitment that he will contact BA and try and resolve these issues?
Well, I just refer the honourable member to my previous answer that I've already raised regional connectivity with BA and other airlines, and I'll just point out Audrey Dunn, the Chief Executive Officer of Visit Derry, has said there is a fantastic buzz around that airport at the moment and what is happening up in the northwest, and I'm great to see the work that's going on with the Northern Ireland Executive in supporting that airport and that the driver of the regional economy there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Can the Minister confirm what support this government will provide to Northern Ireland airports to actually ensure our continued and improved connectivity? Because the previous government promised £2.3 million to the Belfast International Airport in my constituency under Levelling Up Fund 2, which would create jobs, reduce air and noise pollution, but also improve passenger experience. Can the Minister provide an update?
Well, it's great that we have the Northern Ireland Executive up and running, and in the devolution settlement they will be getting more money, but that's a matter for how they spend it. But in terms of Northern Ireland and particularly Belfast this week, EasyJet, the biggest airline out of there, which provide 3.8 million seats, has got new routes to Prague and Marrakesh and introduced new aircraft this week alone. So I think the future's bright for aviation in the province.
Jim Allister.
What conclusion does the Minister draw from the fact that dubious cancellations such as we saw yesterday are far more prevalent where there is a commercial monopoly on the route, such as there is from Belfast City to London City, which is the one affected yesterday? And if he draws the conclusion that connectivity is not helped by monopoly, what action does the government intend to take to encourage competition on routes such as this?
I'm grateful to the honourable member. While he states that particular case, there is actually a very open market in terms of connectivity, and a number of airlines from Northern Ireland, from Belfast in particular, to the south east and to other destinations in the UK. And to refer him to my previous answer around the public service obligations, when these come to be reviewed, we can look at this matter in the round. But be rest assured, I am keen on connectivity between our great nations.
That completes the urgent question presentation.